That was okay, wasn't it? Yeah, it was James and Ray. They've played several times together, and it's really an interesting blend of bluegrass and opera. And you don't always think that kind of thing can work, but they're great musicians, and every time they sing together, it's really very special. So now I've been asked for a really interesting task here, which is to introduce Hal Rogers, Chairman Rogers. And I said, well, you know, I'm pretty familiar with his background. Can you give me a list of the things he's accomplished in Eastern Kentucky and Kentucky since 1980, when he was first elected to Congress, and now it's 42 years. Well, the list is astonishing, and it's frankly remarkable, and it's only a partial list. And I thought he's unique in interesting ways. I first met him in 2016, and I've had the interesting fortune over the course of my adult life to meet many elected officials. And Hal is really interesting from a rare perspective. He listens a lot, and probably listens way more than he talks, which is a pretty unique trait in a lot of officials in Washington. And he doesn't really tout too much the things he does, and also pretty interesting. So I said, let me see a specific list of things he's accomplished, and frankly, it's too long to read. I'm going to read some of it just to give you a sense of specifically what he's accomplished, and which can only reflect, and I wrote a note to myself here, pure passion for the people of his district. It's remarkable. It's 42 years, and I don't think anybody works this hard for this long unless it's out of love, because he doesn't tout himself enough for it to be glory. I think he just really cares a lot for the people of this district and how they live their lives. So I'll give you some examples, and again, this is a partial list. So let's begin. And I don't normally read as a speaker, but the list is too long for me to have memorized. So let's begin with the Mountain Arts Center. Note the address, 50 Hal Rogers Drive. I love the fact that, you know, Hal's alive and kicking and working really hard, and they're already naming stuff after him. You know, normally you have to be gone for 20 years before they name stuff after you, but there's highways, buildings, and it's amazing. So note the address, 50 Hal Rogers Drive, funded by an earmark after Lucy Kinzer and Billie Jean Osborne approached Congressman Rogers. So with that approach, he went and grabbed the money out of DC. Flood projects in Harlan, Bell, Floyd, Johnson, Knox, Whitley, and a study occurring in Beattyville about flood control. Eastern Kentucky Pride, which Hal created along with some other folks, but I think it was his inspiration, cleaned up thousands of garbage dumps, provided wastewater and septic systems to over 20,000 individuals. He's made it his life's mission to provide clean water for Eastern Kentucky. Last year's budget included money for Prestonsburg, Williamsburg, Perry County, and the Buckhorn area, and Knox County to make water service improvements. The budget before that included funding for Martin and Leslie counties. Then the drug epidemic. Hal was probably one of the first people to recognize and become aware of what was going on with opioids. And the story is interesting. I said to him, Hal, what moved you or motivated you with this drug thing? And he said, well, I was reading the paper in Somerset, and there was an article about a rash of drug overdoses in the Somerset hospital. So it's not far from my house. I went down to the emergency room and asked the doctors what was going on. And they said there's something going on with opioids. And from that, he came up with Operation Unite, and also did the first bill in Congress making Americans aware about the opioid problem, which has led to, I think, the recent drug seminar and thing that goes on in Atlanta every year, which has now, I think, the last 3 presidents or 4 presidents have shown up, and now probably hundreds of millions of dollars have gone into addressing this issue. But he was the first one through Operation Unite in building Chad's Hope, West Care treatment facilities that have helped thousands of people in Eastern Kentucky. That's the theme, thousands of people. Unite built the first voucher program in the country and the National Drug and Illicit Drug Abuse Summit, the largest gathering in the country to tackle the deadly drug epidemic. And I asked him about it probably 8 or 10 months ago, and I said, what do you think? He said, we have not done enough. We're nowhere near yet successful. Broadband kicked off the Kentucky Wired project, which brings high-speed, high-capacity internet service to every county in the Commonwealth. And I have, as the CEO of Rajant Corporation, we opened and built a new building in Moorhead, Kentucky, and we would not have done it had there not been this high-speed broadband capability. Rogers Scholars, students from all over Southern and Eastern Kentucky have participated in this program. Colleges and universities have made available $2 million a year to these students. Challenger Learning Center in Hazard, the first rural center of its kind with the mission to get students interested in math and science at a young age. Hal Rogers has helped with the initial funding through an earmark to establish the center. The Deep Space Edition Antenna at Moorhead State University, which established the Space and Science Center. And I personally located Rajant in Moorhead because of the Space and Science Center. When you added the broadband wireless capability, it made it easy to make the decision to come here. This facility is the 4th node on NASA's Deep Space Network. And those students as undergraduates in that program, of which there's only 4 or 5 in the United States similar, they actually hand build satellites. They design them, they write the software, they design the hardware, they do the power supplies, they do the antenna design. And I think I now have probably 18 or 19 of those graduates working for Rajant Corporation. That facility would not be there except for the money that Hal Rogers brought to bring the antenna there. So one more example. The Appalachian Valley Autism Center, treating children with autism in Pikeville and Prestonburg, so their families don't have to travel to Lexington or Cincinnati for the treatment that they deserve and need. Pikeville Medical Center's Children's Hospital, the only children's hospital in the region, and Congressman Rogers generated the monies to make that possible. $3.5 million for equipment for the nursing school at Moorhead. Healthcare jobs are important to the region, and they're able to train nurses and other healthcare related skills at Moorhead because of that kind of earmark. Hal has an affinity for highways and secured funding for many of them. Currently underway is US 25 from 461 to exit 62 in Rockcastle County. In the 2023 budget, there's $7 million for roadway improvements and rockfall mitigation work in Pike County. There's the Cumberland Gap Tunnel, $180 million project, cutting through a mountain between Middlesboro and Cumberland Gap, Tennessee, to bypass the road known as Massacre Mountain, which sounds like a road you want to bypass. In addition to roads, education, and healthcare, he's put a heavy emphasis on tourism through the years. So here's some of the things that Hal has gotten money for. Chairman Rogers, Letcher County will benefit from a Raven Rock Trails Development Program. Floyd County has a world-class trail system which turned an 11-mile abandoned railroad track into a walking trail from the city of Prestonburg to the city of David. On top of that, Country Music Highway has been granted funding for a workforce and tourism development project. Magoffin County received money to create a gateway corridor along the Mountain Parkway. The Royalton Trail Town Development also received funding from the program Hal created. Clay and McCreary counties have received assistance to develop an RV campground. Boone's Ridge, state-of-the-art wildlife education center in Bell County that is expected to draw thousands of tourists to the Cumberland Valley area. The Forum in Hazard, Kentucky, a new facility focused on the arts and used for training purposes for the region. Clay County has received funding for a downtown marketplace to provide the community and visitors with space to engage in activities centered around education, music, culture, and the arts. Jackson County has world-class broadband service and has people moving into the area because of it. True to fashion, he is in the process of creating a business incubator in the former jail where startups can locate. Now, I'm not sure if a startup wants to locate in a jail, but if you do, there's money for it, and Chairman Rogers got the money. Congressman Rogers has always supported law enforcement. He wrote into the federal budget $859,000 for Johnson County first responders to have a communication system, which will help with faster response times and help keep first responders safe with reliable communications. Moorhead received funding in the same federal budget to help build a new fire station, which will also contribute to faster response times. Morgan County is receiving $3 million to fund the Eastern Kentucky Advanced Manufacturing Institute and also the Advanced Robotic Instruction Project. This is on top of advanced CNC machinery training, which leads to new jobs for young people. There's a consular center in Whitley County that uses world-class facial recognition to find terrorists that are trying to enter the country. Harlan County has a premier Boys and Girls Club that Congressman Rogers raised money for and helped along the way. In addition, Harlan is receiving funding for a natural gas infrastructure to the business park. The Kentucky Enterprise Industrial Park received funding and now holds Wright Concrete and employs several Eastern Kentuckians. It goes on and on. So I think the point is he got elected to Congress with Ronald Reagan as president in 1980. 42 years later, he's still doing his work. What does he like to say? Plan your work and work your plan. And so I just consider what he's done over 42 years to be remarkable public service. It's clear he loves the people of Eastern Kentucky. I noticed that years ago when I was at a few events with him, and he can't walk 4 feet without somebody saying hello and remembering this or remembering that. It's really quite astonishing. So I call it a love affair that he has with Eastern Kentucky, and I think it's reciprocated. I think the folks of Eastern Kentucky love him back. And so it's really a very special relationship. And I think the region has been extraordinarily fortunate to have a man so dedicated to whatever he can do to benefit the people that live here. And it's my honor to introduce Hal Rogers and recognize him for SOAR's Lifetime Achievement Award. And I'd like all of you to also recognize Hal Rogers as well as a man who has worked very hard on the behalf of all of us who have a connection to the region. So Hal Rogers, winner of the Lifetime Achievement Award.
Thank you. Thank you. Bob Schena, thank you so much for that very brief introduction. Bob Schena, I've got to tell you about this man. Philadelphia, came to Kentucky looking for a place to locate his company as an extension of the offices in Philadelphia. He came in touch with my field representative and was shown Moorhead among other places, and they fell in love with Moorhead. And Rajant now has their manufacturing facilities there, expanding as we speak. He travels worldwide with his company, and they make cube satellites and miniature radios for everybody. And that caused Moorhead State to start offering a degree in space science, Moorhead, Kentucky. And those students now can get a degree in space science. They're managing satellites, they're making them, they're managing them, and all of the things that go with that. It's an amazing facility. I'm taking the head of NASA there, Bill Nelson, very shortly to Moorhead to show him what Moorhead State University and the community and the state are doing to help the space program. So congratulations to Bob Schena and Rajant for being great Kentuckians now. And Rajant is sort of leading the pack into Silicon Holler because we're pushing broadband, because I think that is the secret that East Kentucky needs to be competitive in the world. I tell recruiting businesses we're recruiting, I tell them about the amazing talent that's here. We've got these laid off coal mine people who are great mechanics who have a desire to stay here, and they will work for you, and the work ethic of Eastern Kentuckians cannot be beat anywhere in the country. And I hear that from people who have plants here and other places. What is it about East Kentucky that we all love? That's a tough question. There's a lot of things that we could mention. But I think the word spirit is important when you talk about East Kentucky. You've come through thick and thin, time and again. One of those bad times was when we were losing our coal mining jobs by the day. Every day, thousands laid off at such and so mine. And the state was reeling. East Kentucky was hurting, bleeding. Such that I went to see the governor, at that time Steve Beshear, talking about the problem and how can we ever solve this predicament that we're in. And we agreed, finally, to call a summit of people from throughout East Kentucky to open their mind and heart and talk to each other about what can we do. I wanted to be sure that East Kentuckians were deciding to pull themselves out of the disaster that we were in. So we called a summit in Pikeville in December for a such and so date. And we showed up in Pikeville in a blizzard. How many of you were there at that time? A bunch of you. And out of that summit where 1,000 or 1,800 people came, spent the day in a blizzard. talking about what we can do to solve our problem. And out of that came SOAR, shaping our Appalachian region. The idea was to open our eyes, ears, and to plan, to invest our own ideas in what we want to see East Kentucky do. And that's what SOAR is all about. And I want to thank you, those members of SOAR on the board and otherwise, who spend time talking about our problem, their problem, and through it all is this spirit that keeps showing itself in Eastern Kentuckians. I mean, you've come through a lot from the Civil War on down. First, we lost the timber industry. Now we've lost the coal industry. We lost tobacco, which was a big part of the income of that time. We've been hit by natural disasters untold, from floods to earthquakes, tornadoes, and the like, wiping us almost off the face of the earth, and yet here you come back. Here you come back. And you tackle the problem, whatever it is. The problem now, of course, is economic development, providing jobs for our people to hold them here. And we're seeing things like Rajant take hold. Rajant loves the place because the workers are so true and talented and willing to work with a great work ethic. That's our sales pitch all over the world. And we're seeing some good results. You've seen them here today even, from these communities that are retooling, polishing up the facts, and making good things take place. I love Eastern Kentucky because of this spirit, this never say die spirit. I like the fact that you came here today dressed to the nines to show the world, hey, we're here, we're together, we've got some great ideas, we've got some great talent, and we're going to make some good things happen. The good things being, we can stay here where we want to live. I remember out of high school in Wayne County in 1955, I followed an older brother to Cincinnati looking for a job, like we've all had to do. I was too young, I was 17. We were in a recession. I pounded the pavements, applied it everywhere, to no avail. Came back home, wound up in college. But I wanted to come back to my home area. John Y. Brown, big lawyer at the time, I law clerked for him during law school. He liked what I did. And when I graduated from law school, he wanted me to go to Louisville, open up a branch office with John Y. Brown Jr., who at the time was selling encyclopedia, but John Y. wanted his son to be practicing law. Well, I thought about it for a good while, but I wanted to go back to my home area, which I did. Left John Y. Brown in the lurch. And boy, he told me every time I would see him in later years, you made a bad mistake. And I guess I did. Because he, as you know, started Kentucky Fried Chicken worldwide. But this area draws you. We all love this area. It's home. It's beautiful. But it has this wonderful spirit that won't let you go. And so I thank you for being a part of SOAR This is our chance to soar. This is our chance to solve our problem ourselves with our talent and our capabilities and our love. So you're making a difference. Some good things are happening, and thank you, Colby Hall, for SOAR doing this, because this gives us a chance to sit back and say, hey, we've got some good stuff going, and we're capable of doing it. So we'll show you. That's what you're doing. You're showing us that you can make it happen. And I salute you. Cynthia and I are delighted to be with you today, but we'll be here when you need us anytime. So one word as I pass from the stage. Keep up your good work. The word is Godspeed. Bless you.
Chairman Rogers, we have one more surprise for you.